Good evening and welcome. I'm Hailey Coxon and this is Mountain Memories episode 9 on the Spirit of Motorsport TV. Welcome. Hello, everybody. We've already had some good evenings from you. Brian Spooner, good evening to you from the West Midlands. Bean Max saying listening from wet Northern Ireland. Well, I'm very happy to say that I am coming to you all the way from sunny Peel on the Isle of Man. So they opened up the island to immediate family members so I could come back, do my quarantine and be here on the glorious Isle of Man. The weather has been mostly fantastic and it's been quite special to be back here on the rock, being able to get around that TT course when I can. And yeah, being able to do the show from here as well. So we've got a great show once again lined up. We've got Roy Moore, Barry Wood joining us back in the studio with special guest Brian Matea. So tonight we have Lance Wilson joining us from Algarve saying hi. Phil Nelms, good evening to you. Evening all. Lovely and sunny. Dan South. Lovely. Jessie Clegg saying hi and good evening from Port Erin. Hello, Jessie. Well, please do share. Remember, if you just tag your friends in, you remind them that the show has gone live, get them to join in. If any questions pop up, please do share away. We love to hear where you are tuning in from. Please do say hello and get involved in the chat. Good evening, Mick Chatterton. Hello to you. Chris Barrett saying hi, everyone. Sunny in Lincolnshire as usual. Have a good evening. Thank you, Chris. All right, keep those good evenings coming in. Lorraine as well, good evening to you. So tonight we have, again, the legendary Roy Moore and the great Barry Wood, and they have invited a special guest that has accepted our invitation, who has given us exclusive access to his photo album and his favorite memories from over the years, racing at the Manx Grand Prix, the Classic, and of course, just around our famous mountain course. So he will be joining us very soon in the studio, sharing his mountain memories. But first of all, before we invite the great Brian in, let's say a good evening to Roy Moore and Barry Wood.
Evening, campers. Good evening, everybody, from the sunny Isle of Man. And yeah, it's been a good few days. It's not looking too good for the weekend, unfortunately, but it wouldn't have affected anything on a normal kind of build-up to TT week, because the boys would have been out, no doubt, down at Ballown on a night like tonight, down putting the Rector-Cell fencing up and titivating in round the clubhouse, and the campsite would be getting ready, and there would be all kinds of activity, but unfortunately it didn't happen last year. It's not happening this year. But I suppose the thing about it is we've only got a year to wait now before motorcycling action returns. It's pretty serious stuff, really, when you think about it all. That's you think you're on the way forward, and then you get kicked backwards and things and that. But hopefully in 2022. It will be that build-up to the classic pre-TT down at Colas Berlaun. I think your views would be very similar to that, Barry, wouldn't they? You've been through all that build-up as a rider, and certainly the club, Southern Club, would be building up to get it ready for you.
Very much so, and certainly coming back from the south this afternoon, and I thought to myself, it's usually around now where, as I'm driving back in, I see a load of vans and not so much transporters now, but a load of vans heading down off the afternoon boat down to Ballown. All the old familiar names: Mike Holes, the Owens, Tom Jackson's Jackdaw racing van. All these Vic Haskell, Stu Robertson, all the same vans year after year, and you have this little convoy goes down in the opposite direction, and I think to myself, this is the first sign that something's about to happen, you know. That's usually about the Tuesday afternoon, so they can get set up in plenty of time. Possibly have a couple of nights in the pub in Castletown. Before practice, starting on the Thursday night, I think it is, and then practice on the Friday night. Even silly things like driving down the road here, where they've got everything set out for the car parking at the grandstand for the COVID swabs. Just for a moment, you think, wow, it's on. The way the yellow railings are, isn't it, Roy?
Yeah.
It's all like it's set out ready for practice, but unfortunately, there is nothing happening at all. But we have our memories, and we'll have you on about them.
Mm. For
Sign of
me,
the
growing,
time. Sign of the
it is.
time, really, wouldn't it be when you went up for your test? You would be
I
in
know, yeah.
Park Ferme for the wrong reasons.
I
Right.
know, but it was great. I felt so naughty driving down there. It was fantastic. At least it was something, you know, like we can't go there and experience it this year. But for me, it was a silly and simple thing, but I really appreciated going for that horrible test, but in the location that it was. So, yeah, but for me, this time of year, if I think about growing up in the hotel on the promenade, or thinking about when my dad was helping run Old Boys football pitch campsite, it was starting to build up. They were starting to get the campsite ready. I was starting to see coming out of the hotel on the prom, you'd start seeing the bikes building up as well on the pavement. I loved it. I loved seeing the bikes, not on the road. It's a really simple thing, isn't it? But to see it like building up against my nan and granddad's railings at the hotel, and I'd just be mesmerized by all the bikes and the people that were starting to filter in, and the excitement that was starting to build.
Well, you know, as kids, we would be down the back of the grandstand every night on our push bike, scratching around, waiting for the first arrival. It's all different now. It's all big transporters, and they're all lined up by the scoreboards because there's a certain place they have to go for the next 3 weeks. But years ago, first come, first served, and it was nearly always a West German rider, Wolfgang Wilhelm. Where else would he be from with a name like that? And, he always used to be the first one, and he used to park right down in the far corner of this field, freshly cut grass. And we'd always be around. We were a bit too shy to speak, but we'd sort of, after 2 or 3 days, he'd be, hello, hello. And he was always the first one. And then bit by bit, there was always a crowd started to arrive. And like nowadays, there's security there from the start of May, isn't there? You know, which is another story. If I had time, I haven't really, but back in those days, there was one guy from the corporation with his 1950s push bike and his black donkey jacket with the orange patch on the back, wasn't it, Roy? And there's 2 flasks, you know, and he never bothered anybody, you know. He was only really there in case there was some sort of say the water went off or something like that. But that was about the extent of the security then. Much happier, simpler times. I suppose back in those days, there wasn't a propensity for people to want to go and steal off other people, but certainly for us as kids, we never got any hassle. And even if somebody would have maybe jumped up on top of one of the roof of one of the tents and slid down, the extent of the trouble you would be in with, I know your father, off, I'll see him tomorrow, and all that, and that would be quite enough that you wouldn't even think of doing it the second time. So, aye.
Happy days. Mountain memories in their true sense.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's great to see those Manxies that do like to stay on the island for it, because there's a lot that do like to get away. But those that do stay, it's great to see how some of them adjust their businesses to cater for the people that are coming over, providing a different kind of business that they would normally, to give the punters who are coming over something different. And it's great to see other Manx businesses thrive by trying to do something different for the different people from all over the world that are coming over.
Well, there is, and even the likes of welders and blacksmiths and paint sprayers get jobs leading up to it. There's always, as Brian will tell you, those people who work their weight in gold when you want something doing to the bike. If you want a weld done or you want a spray job done, it's all work, you know.
And it's not 9 to 5 either. It's after an evening practice and there's something gone astray. Who can we get to do this? Possibly in the old days to go out the next morning, but possibly a bit longer to get it sorted out. The likes of our previous guest, Mike Kane, down at Finnick down there, down in Tramode, he was much sought after. And one big area that was always well used was the steam packet company. They had such talented people down there, and they knew that they were going to get asked, and they were quite happy if it wasn't interfering with theirs to help them out. And lots of talented engineers that operated from a garage, you know, Steve Moynihan building cranks down in Castletown, and they all knew where he was, and they all knew, or he would know as soon as he got a knock on the door and was a fella stood there with a crank in his hand, what the problem was going to be. And they always obliged. Wonderful to see.
Well, weren't the cases several times of fellas who won the race, and they were saying that we found a crack in the frame at 10 o'clock last night.
Oh, God.
And I had to get somebody up out of bed
Yeah.
who would be there half the night, fix it till about 2 o'clock in the morning, and they were paying a great tribute the next day. But weren't they waiting gold, those people?
They were. I had a wonderful thing when you're talking about mountain memories and things that come. We were going up to get the starting list, and Bill Swallow was unloading his bike from the van, and he was talking to somebody somewhere near, and he didn't know who. Well, I've been quite fortunate, really, in the past that they know Chris Kinley and they know Tim Glover, but they know the voice from Ramsey, but they don't know the face, and it's usually a big disappointment anyway when they do see it. But at the same time, I could get away with. I had a terrific overhearing a conversation between Michael Dunlop and Guy Martin. But Bill Swallow got out of the van on his, I think it'd be an Air Mackie or the Norton that he would be riding. And the fella shouted, "Are you all right, Bill?" "Yeah, okay." He said, "Well, what a bloody night I've had." He said, "I discovered a split in the petrol tank." And he said, "You know what's going to be involved in getting that done? You know, because you can't just put a welding torch to a petrol tank. You've got to steaming them out." It was one thing at one time. Down the gas works, they used to take them and steam them out. I think they can do it now. But he relayed the story to the fella about what panic he'd had and get there and all that. Of course, when the race started and he couldn't hear me, I was telling the story. Well, Bill Swallow had a bit of trouble last night. And probably when he came in, they'd be saying, "Where the hell did he find that out from?" And they would never know, because it was just one of those things. And it was, as Barry says, all these vans that increased over the years, from Ford Thames in the early days to the early versions of the Transits, and then the bigger versions of the Transit and the long wheelbase vehicles came in, and then the mobile homes eventually. So it's wonderful to have been involved in it. And when you talk about the little garage I've got out the back, and Buddy would be arriving for there, and I knew what time he'd be coming. But that boat that he'd be on, they would be coming up Duke's Avenue as we know it. As Barry says, they're all transferred now to Glencrutchy Road and come in the top way. But I can hear it now, the vans changing gear as they came up, heavily loaded with bikes, spares for the fortnight, and changing gear heading up to the paddock. And no, they just went in, and they had regular spots that they just picked out. And wonderful to have been involved in it.
Home from home. And that was a great excuse to get the garage cleaned out as well.
Oh,
that might have been a job you were going to do for weeks and weeks. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, look on the calendar, "Oh, Christ, Bud's coming at me." And you kick yourself into action. I have the same thing at home. Normally, the people who stay with me. But
I found Lord looking in it one year.
Fantastic. So and so many people do open up their homes as well, don't they? That's and when you get in a homestay, you hear a lot of people getting a homestay. They're then going back year on year, aren't they? They're going back to the same people. It's a great way to do it when the locals open up their homes, and they become more of a guide and a tourist.
We've had the same couple stay with us in Willesden for 30. It would have been 30 years last year. That would have been a big celebration. They're just friends. There's no money involved. You just stay. I'm on the Settee for 12 nights, but I actually quite like it. I'm on my own down there. But it's just a way of life, you know. And we just, when you look at the early photographs when we all had long hair and we were slim, and that now it looks a bit different, but we still have the same crack. But we just want to have this 30th anniversary. We want a good excuse to celebrate that. And we couldn't do it last year. We can't do it this year. So maybe next year. Oh, that'll be 33 years since he first came. But just a way of life, you know. It's like I say, a big clean-up job. Cut the grass. Another friend of mine stayed in my shed for years, which I thought was quite a brave thing to do. But he was happy enough, you know. He had his bed all made up. He had his little curtains. He had his light, his music, his bottle of red wine, and his book to read after the pub at night. Fantastic.
Bless. We've had some great comments here, boys. We've got loads of comments, actually. So we've got a Facebook user saying, "Yeah, we broke a crank on the last practice. Me and my dad, Bill, rebuilt it overnight. Remember that, Roy?" Ah,
Yeah.
I don't know what name it is.
Yeah, well, we had there was a thing that Billy'd be referring to would be Bill Jackson, and yeah, talented engineer as well. And there was a press that they had to press them together with, and that always used to arrive and used to go into prime spot in the garage on the bench on the left hand side, and it was a wonderful piece of tackle. You would never get a crank apart without it. And then when it went back up, they had to be trued up. And there was like 4 little wheels, and Bill would set the crank on that and then push with the TZ Yamahas, push it round to get it balanced. And then there was like a little dial, and only when he was happy with that, where that dial was activating, would he get it. And if it wasn't quite right, I can see him now getting the thing, picking it up, getting a big wooden mallet, a rubber mallet, and giving it a crack somewhere. But when he cracked it in a certain place and put it back on, he would either be smiling or cursing, whichever way that little needle went. But it's the old story, isn't it? Like the engineering joke about the fella who fixed the thing, and he said, yeah, it was £2,000. He said, God, that's dear. All you did was hit it in a certain spot. He said, aye, it was £2,000 to hit it in the right place. And that's what Bill was doing. He knew exactly where to hit that crank. You know, 2 conrods and the revolving nature of it, the bulb, the bearings that were on it and everything like that. Put it back on the little 4-jig wheel or 4 wheels little jig, and then just look at it where the needle was going. And only when it was kind of hovering around 0 would he be happy with it. Because you just imagine they'd be going out there and hitting, 10, 12,000 revs. And it was all down to him at that time for getting it right.
Oh God, I had a six lap race very often back then as well.
Oh God, yeah.
I remember watching Mike Coyle do that many a time, and it looks brutal, but with experience, it's the way to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks for that. Much appreciated that. You tend to think, well, this is not about us, but we're going to get Brian on shortly, and he'll be full of talk, I'm sure, with coming from that part of the world.
Thanks everybody for your great comments. So we've got lots of hellos and good evenings. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Keep sharing away with your friends and saying hello, and we'd love to hear from you, your comments, your questions. And Steve Hallen says, I miss the island so much. 2019 hardly saw a bike because of so much rain. And 2020 and 21 has been written off, but we need our TT so much it hurts. Love all on the island. I agree. Bring 2022 right on. All right, boys. Well, we have Mr. Brian Matea. He's in the studio with us. And Barry, tell us why we invited him on the show. He's got some great photos to share and a fantastic history on the island. So share a bit of why we've invited him on this evening.
Well, the main reason I asked Brian to come on was because I wanted to see him cringe, and I wanted to embarrass him, But in fairness, he's 30-odd years experience, not just mountain course, but Belen, Irish road races. Almost always a 2-stroke man, and Manx winner, pre-TT Classic winner, but always very approachable and very chatty. One of the first things I would always do every year is go and find Brian in the paddock for a cup of tea and a yarn. So that takes up the first hour anyway. So I know there's a lot of friends also of Brian's that watch this, and I hope full well that they will chime in and ask him a few questions as well. And I'm sure he'd be delighted to answer them.
Great. And Royster, you've commentated on him, but you've not actually met him yet.
No, it's strange, isn't it? As I said before, the way things work out. I went down for my second jab yesterday and was cruising back up Victoria Road, and Stephen Christian, his wagon was parked outside Anfield Hay, which is a people's residence on Victoria Road, and there was a fella obviously waiting to get back in across the other side, and his face lit up, and I'm not being big-headed, but his face lit up. He said, Roy Moore, he said, I've been waiting for ages. He said, I knew I'd bump into you sometime, but I didn't think it was going to be this morning. And the next thing we were into Richard Brooks, I think was the name that came through. And the next thing, it was delayed the journey home by about half an hour. And he was happy because the boys hadn't turned up. And by the time we'd finished yapping for half an hour about Michael Rutter, Tony Rutter, and the Hanks and the West Country, and he had one of those noticeable accents. It was like a cross between Jesper Carrot and Michael Rutter. And just wonderful conversation. And then later on, again, grandchild viewing day, I met another chap up in Nobles Park talking about the TT Riders Association and his involvement with that. And it's the usual thing in the Isle of Man. Hello, you say, how are you doing? And then when you go away, the wife said, who was that? He said, I haven't got a clue. He said, oh, Roy, how you doing? And that's it. So we will be delighted to see Brian. I think we will have, in the career that he's had on the island, have covered some of his moments. There might be a few missing, but yeah, absolutely delighted. And I'm relying on my mate, the other proclaimer here, to choose all the guests. And I'm sure that he'll have chosen absolutely superbly with tonight's guest, Brian Matea.
Welcome, Brian.
Hello.
Hey.
How's it going?
Not too bad, Brian. You got on all right. We had a bit of last minute hassle tonight, didn't we? We're all right now. We're all right now.
I didn't think we were going to see you at all at one stage.
No, don't panic. Manx fellas never panic.
Start at the back. We got going.
We did the right thing, switched it off and switched it back on again.
That's it, rebooted it.
Hoped I'd be able to remember me password so I could get back in.
Rebooted.
But we're here.
Don't start getting these technical terms, Brian. I don't know what that means, but
Oh, I only know that because my wife tells me that. Every time we have a problem in the house with electrical stuff, she'll say, just reboot it.
You fellas would be in Northwesting at this time of the year, wouldn't it? That would be the sequence.
Yes, it would have been over just last weekend there, so it would.
How does it feel in Ireland not having it?
It's a bit strange not having any racing at all, Roy, to be honest with you. We were due to start next month on the 5th of June for our first short circuit, and now that's delayed till the 10th of July at the minute. So it's going to be a short season if it starts, so it is, you know. But it would be nice to get this all over and get back to 2022 and start a full season in Easter time.
what's the plan with the roads, Brian? Had they got they're hoping to have a couple of races, are they?
Yes, they're hoping to have Armoy in July and Cookstown in September. So they are at the minute. That's the plan.
Mm-hmm. Great if they go ahead, but you can't beat a full season with the championship points and stuff like that.
No, exactly. And you know yourself, Barry, like Armoy is usually well into the season, so you're raring to go, whereas you'd be treating it like the first race of the year. So you will. But having said that, there'll be people haven't turned the wheel for a year and a half now as well.
I must admit, I felt like that about the Cookstown at the end of last year when they managed to get that to go ahead. And I thought, well, nobody's dialed in.
Exactly. Aye. And a road race to start off with as well.
I know. Well, you've got as well as having raced for a few years, Brian, you can go, you're very knowledgeable about the sport as well, if you don't mind me saying that. If Roy did a quiz again, I would want you in my team.
Right.
I don't mind. No, to do the picture questions. You always get them right. But going back beyond that, I mean, you can talk about years ago with a bit of authority there. What was your earliest memories yourself, Brian? I mean, I would assume it would be up at Dundrod, maybe. What, as a spectator, as a young boy?
My earliest as a spectator, Barry, would be the battle that Raymond McCulloch enjoyed in Lappad at the Temple.
Really? You were there that day?
I was at the first right-hander after the start and finish, so I was. And it was I was, 5 or 6 then, but I still remember it vividly. So it was unbelievable. Like,
Wow.
This Tremardy, well, Ray and Joey in a race like that, this was a famous race. At what stage would you say then you thought I would actually quite like to have a go at this someday?
probably at that age.
Yeah.
You know yourself, Barry. You would have went home and jumped on a push bike, and you were either Jordan Lap or Raymond McCulloch turning around the pavement. So you were, you know.
Well, that's what I used to do. I said this to Chris McGann. Chris McGann, when he was a young man with long hair, back in the 70s, he did like an L hip. And he used to come into bed, sit on this L250 with his knee out, you know, like Paul Smart sort of thing.
Right.
Go around with listening on me push bike with me knee out, going, I'm Chris McGann, I'm Chris McGann. I told him that, but he didn't know what to think about that. But this is how it was, you know. Yeah. When I got given the Jack Finley back number from 1971, the first thing I did was pin it on my back, go heading off around on my push bike, which was great for 10 minutes before I ended up wheeling the bike home with blood everywhere. But it was good fun while it lasted.
Wrong tyre choices usually. I'll never forget coming down Nursery Avenue in Unken and slinging into Nursery Close, which was the thing, and the both wheels went at the same time. And you didn't have a chance, did you? You were down the road, like, I mean, and gravel rash from your blooming shoulder blade to right down to your ankle on whatever side you managed to be peeling off at the time. And casually picking it up and walking back up, and then all the treatment then he had to go through, picking the gravel out and stuff like that. It was all part of growing up.
A way of life.
Yeah. White handkerchiefs weren't used for blowing your nose. They always had them round your face like that, didn't you? Like like all the top men. John Blanchard is a good man. Phil Reed, always the white hanky in front.
Magical times.
Yeah, it was great stuff. No wonder we got involved in it.
Exactly.
What was that noise, Brian?
It's the dogs come into the kitchen, so he has, and he's got a squeaky ball. Could you hear? I couldn't hear it. It's just when you said the noise, and I've looked to my left, and he's running around the kitchen floor.
Good on you.
So would you have got, after witnessing that, like, did you sort of think to yourself, well, I can't wait to see the next race? What did you do after that?
Well, when my mum and dad went to all the road races, you know, right through the summer, so you knew when you were after Temple, it would have been the Dundalk, well, Calinchi 150 then would have been the next one. So, or no, tell a lie, that would have been July, so it would have been a bit Antrim would have been going to next. So you just knew you were going to another road race the next weekend or in 2 weeks' time, sort of thing. So
and that was a different mid-Antrim course back then as well.
Oh, it was. Yes, it was the was it the Rathkenny circuit then?
I think so. I was never around it. I've heard of all riders a little older than us had done it. You know, some cracking photographs.
Before our time.
Put it that way, yes. They are now. Well, this is directly after the race, I assume, then?
It is, Barry. That's directly after the lightweight on the Friday morning. That was 1992, the first year. Yes. So it was.
Do you recognise them two gentlemen on the right, Roy?
I don't know. I'll have to hold my hands up on that one. The new grandstand. There's the old bridge in the background. That's no longer with us. No doubt we'll probably see a few with the scoreboards as well, but they're gone. But no, I'll have to hold my hands up and say I don't know the two gentlemen on the right, but you will.
Silver Eel, Glenavy, Hans Green and Orange Letters. Does that ring a bell? Inglewood.
Inglewood, yeah. Now you're talking. Yeah.
Well, that's you know who it is.
I'm saying nothing until I'm prompted.
From Dunmurray. Well, he was. I don't know where he lives now.
Oh, dear. No. Incorrect answer from our quiz team here, or part of it.
And you've commented on him many a time. I'm sure you have. Brian, what you can tell us who it is, Brian.
It's Bill Rice is right beside me, and then the gentleman on the very right-hand side is Bob Taylor.
Bob
Taylor from the Sulby. And Sulby Glen.
A big man in the Manx Grand Prix supporters club as well.
He was, very used to ride the Yamahas as well. And Bill Rice, we have Bill was a real enthusiast when he didn't hang about like, but he was always kind of dwarfed the machine that he was riding. But by God, he could go well at the places I'd probably go back, but he would probably have been at Ballacrane when we were doing it. He seemed to be there that involved that long.
Well, looking at Bill there, doesn't he look like a classic enthusiast with his gabardine green coat and his flat cap, doesn't he? You'd think he had a Manx Norton just a bit further along. But he was a great help to you. But they were both a great help to you for many years, don't you boys?
Oh, they were, Barry, definitely. I mean, I knew Bill long before I did the Manx. So I did. So once it entered and first done the Manx, Bill gave me a lot of support and advice and guided me. So he did. And then the first year that I'd done it, with him being good friends with Bob, the both of them did my pit crew, and then they did my pit crew right through till practically the last year I raced at the Manx. So they did, and they were always, if something, just what you were saying earlier, if you needed something welded or repaired, they knew the network of who to go and who to see, and it cut down on time, because you know yourself, if you have problems on a Monday night, it could be Thursday before you've sorted it. Whereas if you know where to go and who to see, you're ready to be out the next night and you're on the wheels again. So you are. So the two of them were unbelievable.
Right now, go on, tell us.
That's 17 years later. The same two gentlemen, and then you'll know the man who's beside me as well.
Well, I do, but I'll let Roy have a guess at that one. Another 254 of a Manx Grand Prix man, but a Manx fella.
One of the Neils? No.
Hey, you have got my surname, actually.
Yeah, but was it not Wally?
It is Wally.
Is this?
It is indeed. Yeah.
Wally Neil, by God.
Now Wally will say, well, Roy, say to Bill Rice, Roy Moore recognised me, but he didn't recognise you.
You know what's good about those photographs, Brian? Numbers you can see.
Oh, that's
exactly.
Right.
Numbers you can see. If you miss the front, you could catch the side. 87 on this one, the previous one. And I'm sure that if my young fella's looking now, he would be wanting a bit of advice, because I think he's the proud owner. Well, we're the proud owner of one of them at the moment. Maybe not exactly the same as that, but certainly it's a 250.
250B.
A B, is it? Yeah, well, that would be, it might be a bit higher on than that one, but yeah. Sulby Glen Hotel, great sponsors, aren't they?
Rosie and Eddie have been great friends to me from day one as well.
Brian stays there.
Stays at the Sulby Glen.
You've always stayed there, Brian, have you?
I did it. I stayed in Douglas the first year I did it, and then I met Rosie at the prize giving in the Villa Marina, and she said, if you're coming back to the Manx, you can come and stay with me. And I don't know whether she lived to regret it, because that was 1992, and I still stay with her even when I do the pre-TT. So I do. So that's a long time. Long time.
But that's a typical story of racing on the Isle of Man. You sort of make friends with people and stay with them, and it can go on for years and years.
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, and it's a case of, when you go to stay, it is just like being at home. So it is. It's just a home away from home, basically.
Except for the Boulogne race, it's about 500 miles to get there and back.
Well, you say that, but you see, if I'm going to a race down south, it seems to go from Sulby to Boulogne twice a day is nothing. So it's not. Although I remember.
I'd take the bike to Boulogne, leave it there, and microwave it there or something like that.
Well, I remember talking to a lorry driver outside Cayley's one day, and he told me he was going to Castletown, and he was coming back again, and he says, and I'm classed as a long distance lorry driver, so I am.
Well, I agree with that.
Sylvie,
and he was serious, so he was.
It's a long way by our standards.
Well, yeah.
Boys, I'm just going to share some of these great comments that we've had. We've had a few things for you, Brian. So Gail Core says, hey, Brian, hope to be giving you the checkered flag again soon at Amoy or Cookstown in the noisy Yokes race. Love to Lynn and Freddie the dog. See yous at Amoy. Very good. Ian Anthony Huntley saying good evening. We have Christine Arthur saying hello, everybody. And Phil Nelms is saying we are missing being at the TT for our TT wedding anniversary on the 29th of May. Happy wedding anniversary on the 29th, Phil. We'll see you here next year. And Brian Spooner spotted your mom. Ian Kermode says, hello, Brian. And Jack Russell Henley says, I knew there was a reason that there was a motel at Santon. Very good, very good. Well, we've got some more fantastic pictures to share, Brian. We appreciate the selection.
There you go.
There's a fella trying hard there.
Yeah. Description of sweeping through Union Mills, I would think, would be. No, I've got to be careful. No, I think it's Union Mills. I think we're right. Yeah.
Was that the one you won, Brian?
No, the significance of that one, Barry, is that was the year I got the 110 average in the race. So it is.
Right. Were you still leading on the road at that time?
Oh, yeah, I think I laid on the road until, I think, was the end of the mountain mile on the last lap. So it was. So, and I think I was third at the end of lap 1 and up to second, you know, because it was a 3-lapper, people were moving back and forward.
Yes.
And I think I was up to second at the pit stop and then dropped to 4th on the last lap. But because it got the 110 average, it made it a really special day. So it did.
Fantastic pick. It really is.
Really good, isn't it? Yeah. Just that bit of balance on the left-hand side is your thing, and everything tucked in. I
should have kept the left knee in a wee bit further. It's too far out.
Yeah. Wind resistance there. Oh, dear me. Yeah, fabulous on the right, is it?
And you've always stuck with the Yamahas, Brian, as well, pretty much.
Yeah, more or less, Brian. I rode. Remember, I had an RGV Suzuki like yourself.
But the real race you run with TZ for many years.
Oh, it was always TZ. Yeah, I'd ridden a couple of RS 250s, but I always felt as if the TZ you just sat in it.
I can agree with that myself. To be honest, I would prefer the TZ. Different feel.
Yeah, right. Definitely. This is a really comfortable bike, especially around the Isle of Man. It just feels right, or it always felt right. So it did.
Yeah. Who's out there? That's Stuart Garden.
That's Stuart Garden. Yeah, that's actually the last lap. Both Stuart and I rode at the Manx, so it is in 2014.
And we used together on the road the whole time, Brian?
No, just the last lap. So it was. We passed and repassed each other a couple of times, and Stuart was a cracking rider to ride with, and it was just really good fun. So it was, and it sticks in the memory, that lap. So it does.
God, where's that? Waterworks. Where is it? That's the thing.
Yes, it's coming up. Just coming up to the waterworks.
Yeah, that's not bad, is it? When you think about it. Yeah, there's certain things you look for, and you can come badly unstuck and make a fool of yourself, or you can be standing back and patting yourself on the head. Yeah, fabulous.
You've got them all right so far, Roy, now.
Yeah, well, you got to watch the damp patches away from Ramsey Head, as you well know.
Yeah, exactly.
The fella down there tells you all about that, though.
Aye.
Yeah, watch it under the trees as you're accelerating away from Ramsey Head and damp patches.
I think that's part of the enjoyment of the TT course, but the fact that you can ride in changeable conditions. Every lap can be different, so it can it's different on a good day, but on a day with a bit of dodgy weather, you just have to encounter everything. So I think that makes it enjoyable too.
You said that you were never too phased by the wet. It was back in the days when we used to race in the rain. If it was wet, it was wet.
I think it's because before a race, I rode a road bike a lot, and I think you've got to go to work in the wet. You've got to go to work in the wet, and I think the same thing applies when it comes to if you're in the Holton area and it's wet, well, nobody's making you go. No, you're not forced to go. So if you're going to go, you may as well enjoy it.
Well, the way
the rain, Brian, we've got a great shot of you in the rain here, which is.
Here we go.
There we go. Yeah. Jelly's on there, boys.
That's just Suzuki. Back as L bike.
Decker Kelly's.
Where's that, Brian? Iron Gate?
Iron Gate.
It is, Barry, yes, aye.
Yeah.
Sometimes you see a photograph on a different angle and it looks completely different, but you wouldn't have thought that the road sort of dropped down so much into it. But
Aye, and from the angle of that, yeah.
So
You would know that one.
Yeah.
You'll know that one, Barry, because you talked me into going to the pre-TT for a long time.
And eventually you decided you quite liked it as well.
Yeah, exactly.
What year is that one now? How did you get on that year?
That's 2017. I think I was second that day.
That's right.
Mike Hose won it.
Yes.
Mike Hose on the aerial arrow.
Yep.
Yeah.
He did indeed.
That was bad weather. That terrible, really. To be fair, the sidecars. I think all the races suffered with bad weather on that particular one.
I remember it now. By the time the racing actually started, my feet were saturated like two wet tissues. It was a disaster, but one of many. I mean, the weather can be fantastic down there, or it could be the complete opposite. There's quite a lot of rain under Brian's water, under the tyres there as well.
I remember the warm-up lap for that race, riding round, behind the car, and thinking you thought you were going to fall off everywhere. It felt like there was practically no grip at all. And then once the flag dropped and you went and you got up to a bit of speed, it was brilliant. No problem at all. So there wasn't.
Mm-hmm. Would you have had any signals around there, Brian? Would you have known where you were, or could you just tell from the start who was ahead of you, if anybody?
No, I've no signals, Barry. And to be honest with you, I knew it was probably in the top three, but I wasn't sure where I was until I closed in on Mike on the last lap, and I think he beat me about a second or something, to the line.
Mm.
But apart from that, no, not really.
It was very close at Castledown Corner on the last lap. I can remember it well now, yeah.
I think, the old saying, if you had another lap, it might have been different, but it wasn't, so it was what it was. But I was delighted to finish second, especially to Mike.
Yeah.
So I was. And then we got the fastest lap that day, which was nice. So it was.
We've got a great question here for you from Gail Core, Brian. It's what's your favourite and least favourite section on the mountain course?
Well, my favourite would be from the Ginger to Ramsey. So it would. I don't think I'd have a least favourite, but I always find the open bends on the mountain from the end of the mountain mag probably to the 33rd, just because you could see through them, not as comfortable as riding down, between walls and hedges. So I did. But I wouldn't say I didn't like it. It just, if I had to pick a section that I could miss and go back to the start, it would probably be the mountain, so it would.
It'd be pretty unique, really, though, wouldn't it, if you were brought up on between the hedges, literally in Ireland, to then being between the hedges from the start to Ramsey, and then it's totally different, isn't it? It's
I think that's
unique experience.
I think that's what it is, Roy. I wouldn't say it because the 32nd and 33rd and the mountain section's brilliant, so it is. But if you were given a choice, I preferred to turn right at Ballacrane. So I would. I like that, from there in, but definitely from the Ginger. Once you got to a bumpy section of road, especially, Barry will know what I'm talking about. Just the bike moving about a bit just felt like being at an Irish road race, so it did.
Very much so. A very, very technical part of the course to learn and also to explain to people. I know taking newcomers around for that 4 miles, you've got so much you want to say and not necessarily enough time to say it as you're driving around. You've got to stop and talk a bit and explain it. And it can be hard to learn, but once it clicks, it's very satisfying.
Yeah, definitely.
There's another thing you'll get to an Irish road race course on the course, I would suggest.
Yeah. I remember, I was talking to Neil Cudworth, maybe the second or third year that I'd done the Manx, and saying to him, because I think when I rode the Suzuki at the Manx, it didn't really handle very well, not compared to the TZs.
No.
And I remember him telling me the first year I rode the TZ, he said, just when you get through the Ginger onto the bumpy section, he says, just relax your hands, bury your knees into the tank basically and just let the bike do what it wants to do. And he says, it'll go where you want it to go. And the first time I tried it, that was it. You know, he was 100% right. But like the experience Neil had, if he was going to tell you something, you knew he wasn't going to put you wrong. So
That's
he
true.
wasn't, you know.
Great lad, wasn't he? Great lad.
Oh, brilliant. Brilliant rider too. I remember following him one year in the lightweight, you know, for maybe a lap and a half, 2 laps, and his lines were absolutely perfect. So they were.
And immaculate preparation of the bike, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
He rode the bike the way he prepared it, basically, so he did.
Everything was absolutely spot on.
Yep.
I remember Bob Jackson saying about like showing people round, and he said, we don't tell them everything. You know, like he said, in certain parts, he said, if you're just a foot either side, you know, you give an indication to somebody, well, you've got to be here at a certain part before you peel off or turn left, right, whatever it might be. He said, we don't tell them everything. And it's the old story about Joey going over a 10 pence piece on the road, isn't it? You know, he knew he'd worked out the exact line. And he said on that particular section, Bob said on the road, especially around Glenduff by the quarry there, he said, if you're a foot one side or the other of where you should be, he said, the thing is all over the place. And yet you get on that line and it's a lot easier.
Yeah.
He said, but that's only gained by personal experience. And he said, we don't tell them everything, but we keep them safe. Keep just enough, yeah. Yeah. Which is a wonderful thing, really, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
We've got another question from David Patterson here for you, Brian. What's your favourite bike you've ever ridden at Isle of Man or at home? Great question,
well,
David.
That would have to be a TZ 250 Yamaha, so it would.
Great. For both?
Both, yeah. Although I enjoy riding the classic, but definitely the TZ. Just it's Barry know what I want to say it like. It's like sitting in an armchair. It's, you know, a purpose-built race bike just does what it's supposed to do, basically. So it does.
How are things shaping now? I mean, you haven't had any chance to ride them, but are they sitting there ready to go?
Oh, they're ready to go, but lockdown has made me very unfit, and I'm not ready to go, I don't think.
Is it a case of going out and having a look and then putting a bit more polish on and just checking it over?
More or less, Roy. The Suzuki's ready to go, but then I had built the 350 or an overboard Suzuki for the pre-TT, and it's been out once for a bit of a test day, so it has, but it needs a wee bit of work done to it yet, so it does. So I'm hoping to use it maybe this year at home just to get a bit of mileage on it before next year. So I am, but I think I need to get out walking with the dog a bit more. So I do.
Maybe that's what he was trying to tell you when he came in.
Could well be.
Brian, you eventually realise your ambition of winning the Manx. Wonderful occasion. What can you tell us about it, about the last lap? What can you remember about that? Did you know you were leading?
I knew I was leading on the first lap at Glentrammon. And then I think I lost a lot of time in the pit stop, so I did. And by Glen Helen, the lead was down to maybe around a second on the last lap. And then I knew I think it was it was Phil McGurk had started in front of me, so I'd caught him and passed him on the road, you know. So when I came into the pit, I knew I was leading okay, but when I come out of the pit, just as I come out of the pit, Phil went past. So I knew that as long as I kept him in sight, I would be okay. And then I'd closed in on him again until Ramsey, and then I think Phil slid off at the gooseneck on the last lap. So I knew then that basically I had to just ride it to the finish. So I did.
What a wonderful feeling that must have been. But
it was strange.
After all them years, like, you just hope everything's going to hang together then for another, what?
Yeah.
12 laps.
It was, what would you say? You know, way people say it's a bit surreal, and it was. I think it was only probably when I got loaded up and went home, and maybe you were home for a couple of weeks, that it really sank in. So it was.
Yeah.
And one of those things, you always said, you know, if you've won it once, they can't take it away from you, and it is. It's a lovely feeling to know that I've won a Manx Grand Prix, so it is.
Oh God.
It only took me, what, 17 years?
Well, now what's that? That's a third place cap, isn't it?
That's 2012. When I think I had 2 third places that year, so I had, and
Right.
the reason that photo's there basically is because when I won it in 2009, then it broke down in 2010, it broke down in 2011, and then 2012 when I got the 2 podiums made it really special. So it was wouldn't say it was as good as winning the Manx, but it was nice to sort of get back up into a podium position again.
Oh, aye.
Yeah, lovely memories in that, isn't there? Yeah, you can have as many videos as you possibly can. You don't take the opportunity to get them out and put them in, load them up, and then try and find a spot. A photograph says it all in one impact, isn't it? Yeah, the thoughts that go through your mind when you see that, not only the personal kind of contribution that you're making to the photograph, and you're a good lady, I would assume. But,
it is indeed, Roy.
Yeah, all that, even the flags in the background and leaves on the trees, and yeah, all the atmosphere that's in that area, and always has been, and always hopefully will be in the future.
Like I've said many a time, Brian, too, it's winning the Manx. It probably is one of the greatest days ever. You can't.
Oh, definitely. I mean,
you can't beat that. No matter what you do in race or in your career or whatever, you're not going to beat that ever.
No, you definitely. Well, I suppose you're chasing dreams all the time when you just go racing. But the goal when it first started was to do the Manx, and I never thought it would even be possible to win it. And then, you know yourself, Barry, you move the target on each time. It was to do a 100-mile-an-hour lap. It was to finish in replica time, and then it was to do
there's always something else to strive
something
for.
different, you know. And I never thought really until 2009, because I thought the post-classic race, because of the bike I had ridden in the modern lightweight Manx Grand Prix, you know, I had a lot of years on it. It was well set up. I was comfortable riding it. I knew that when I would go in 2009, that I would just have to ride the bike, because it was more or less what it needed to be. Whereas other people probably maybe would have a bit of setup time to do and get the bike dialed in, you know, and everything just fell into place. It was perfect.
Magic.
Yeah.
And do you remember the time we first met? Was at the Temple 100?
It was 1993 Temple 100. That's right.
And we went on the minibus for the newcomers. Brian Reid did it. I couldn't understand. It's not the word Brian said. It was blowing with rain, and I was sat at the back, and I couldn't hear a thing. So we had this bizarre experience of going out in the Temple 100. I've never really hadn't done a lap of the course in my life. It was pouring rain. But, hard to learn, but enjoyable. But yeah, that's the first time.
Did you go back again, Barry?
No.
Did you just?
If you done the Southern 100, you would normally have a week off work for that as a local.
Right.
Because it was hard to work and be down there in time to Screet and Eamon. But the Temple would be the week after that or whatever. So you couldn't really have a week off and then another weekend. Or you could, but you couldn't afford to, basically.
Right.
So I never got back to it, no. So.
Brian, I'm just going to share this final question with you, if you don't mind, before we have to say our goodbyes. From Brian Spooner, who's asking, who's your best rival in the Classic? Great question.
He knows why he's asking it, so it's Richard Ford.
Richard, a good lad, I think. Again, there's a Bob Jackson connection there. I think
there is, yes.
He does a bit of with it, because again, the little garage out on my left-hand side here is we've seen a few years and stuff like that, and we still keep in touch. And I did meet him. I met Richard Ford, I think, when the last 2019, and then you look up for the results, and he's a good lad on anything, really, isn't he? Because I know he does 250, and he's got a 500 as well.
He's two big Nortons and the T20, and
930 or something like that. It's a big 4-stroke he rides as well.
he's got I think he's got a 750 and a 930, so he has. But as you say, if it's a T20 or a big bike, he's good no matter what he rides, and he's a good clean rider. We've had some really good close races together, but it's always good crack, so it is. And he's always there with a beer after the race. Just the one, but
it sounds a kind of a commitment, all this beer after the race. It seems to be a general thing that crops up in conversation on most occasions.
I'll tell you that I was teetotal till I started racing classics, and you have to drink beer when you race classics, so you do.
Brian was always a very quiet lad, and then he actually did. He was very, very sociable all of a sudden. He met all these classic it's a way of life. Really, long may it continue that way.
Yeah, you've got to have something like that. It's part and parcel of it.
Exactly.
We'll have to be going shortly anyway, because it's last orders in Peel, and Hailey's on the
island. Brian, are we likely to see you back on the Manx roads again racing?
Hopefully, if pre-TT runs next year, I'll have my entry in for it. Definitely.
Excellent.
Definitely.
Excellent. Well, we look forward to seeing you back over here.
Yes, thank you very much.
And I really appreciate your time this evening and sharing your photos as well and your mountain memories. It's a joy for me to sit back here and listen to you boys banter and share your memories. It's a pretty special thing. So thank you, Brian. I really, really appreciate your time. It's been great to have you.
Thanks very much for inviting me.
Absolute delight. And I hope you're not disappointed by seeing the face behind the name, because I'm certainly not. with what you've come up with us tonight, it's been an absolute joy to be involved, and sincere thanks from us.
Cheers, Brian. Hopefully, catch some stage anyway. I don't know when that will be, but might get over. But
you'll probably be over for Scaries next year if it runs, will you?
Scaries has gone Saturday, Sunday now. It's changed a bit. I used to like the Friday, Saturday, but I will be over at some stage. I won't tell you when. I'm getting in the head too much. I'm not trying to impress, But yeah, I look forward to getting back there as much as you look forward to getting here. But
good job.
Good to see you, Amy. Thanks for that.
Yes, you too. Thank you.
Thanks, Brian. Take care.
All right. All the best. Cheers.
Cheers,
Brian. Bye-bye.
Back to the grandstand.
Nice one, boys. Great guest once again. Really, really great choice. Fantastic pictures and amazing memories. And once again, we could have just continued right the way through, wouldn't we? But like you say, last orders are approaching, fast approaching. Yeah, it's a great one. Thanks, Barry. Thanks for the suggestion. Great to see you again, boys. We'll be back again in 2 weeks, and many, many more memories to share.
Great stuff. Thank you, Hailey. Cheers for that.
Thanks, Hailey. All the best.
Cheers, boys. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Your comments, we've had so many comments this evening. Another great show from Richard Brooks. Christine Arthur said, thank you so much once again. A great show. Well done, Brian. Thanks, guys. Gail Core saying another great show. Thanks. We appreciate all of you loyal viewers tuning in, sharing your questions. And remember, if you know anybody that missed it tonight, please do share. It's available now. It's there forever. They can catch up, watch the replay. If you joined late, don't you worry. You can go back and watch it from the beginning. So we'll be back with the boys once again in 2 weeks' time. Thanks again for tuning in. I'm Hailey Coxon. This is Mountain Memories, episode 9 on the Spirit of Motorsport TV.